Hey guys, this is Mark with AdultAsperger'sChat.com, and I wanted to answer this question. Why is it that my husband on the autism spectrum never considers my point of view? He always has to be right, and I'm always irrational and overly emotional according to him. So just understand that your husband has autism, for crying out loud. Autism, okay? Not an allergy or something like that. It's a neurocognitive disorder that affects many areas of functioning. This could include difficulty with basic understanding of rules of society, especially if these rules are not obvious. You know, there's a lot of hidden rules. Some are written, some are spoken, and some are learned through observation and intuition. He doesn't have intuition like you do. So a person on the autism spectrum has difficulty understanding social cues. He has difficulty with implied directions. He is a visual learner in a verbal world, and he has difficulty reading between the lines. You, as a neurotypical spouse, can do all of this stuff naturally and intuitively. You don't have to even think twice about it. Your husband with autism, he learns facts. He learns facts. He does not take in all of what is happening around him that involves the rest of the world, only what directly impacts him. He's not taking in the stuff that happens around him. He only takes in the stuff that impacts him. So your husband has probably had many conversations that have generally been about knowledge, facts, figures, and whatnot, but not about feelings and interactions. Emotions and emotional reciprocity are foreign to him, especially if he has some mind blindness issues or some alexithymia. So as a result, he does not really know how the social world works and what one is supposed to do in various socially tricky situations. And guess what is the most socially trickiest situation? Being with you, the NT wife. So the being in the dark about what to do in socially tricky situations can apply to even the smallest situations that you, as wife, may take for granted. Not knowing the unspoken rules of situation causes anxiety with him, which leads to many of the behavioral problems that you witness as your husband tries to impose his own sense of order on the world he doesn't fully understand. So your husband creates his, if he is typical of other people on the autism spectrum, he literally creates his own set of rules for everyday functioning to keep things from changing and thereby minimizing his anxiety. He has mind blindness, he has alexithymia. This creates a lot of unpredictability, and unpredictability creates a lot of anxiety. So to reduce his anxiety, he's going to create as much predictability as possible. So that means he does not want change, especially surprise changes. He wants a lot of routine and structure. So sometimes he just makes up the rules when it's convenient. Other times he attempts to make them up by looking for patterns, rules, or the logic of a situation to make it less chaotic for him and more predictable and understandable. So if there are no rules for an event or situation, if your husband is typical of the run-of-the-mill autistic brain, he will create his own rules from his own experiences based on what he has read, seen, or heard. He will often have a great deal of information to use in reaching his conclusions and forming his opinions. So as a result, some of his conclusions are correct, some of them are wrong. So your husband will rarely consider your point of view if he does not consider you to be knowledgeable on the topic in question. And most of the things that you bring up with him, he does not view you as an expert, so therefore your opinions on a particular matter may be disqualified. So if you can't or don't provide facts, that's how he thinks, facts, not emotions. So if you can't or don't provide facts and evidence that back up your opinion will mean nothing. And so he will argue with you about your opinions if they're different from his, and he may even download your differing opinion as criticism. So he thinks that his opinion is more logical, so he chooses his opinion. And he probably may view you as illogical, overly emotional. And honestly, that does represent rigid thinking on his part, which is a trait of autism. We could say in general that the person on the autism spectrum finds it difficult to be flexible, finds it difficult to consider alternative views, especially if he's already reached a conclusion. So new ideas can be difficult to accept. He may say something along the lines of, I'd rather do it the way I've always done it. And so being forced to think differently can cause a lot of anxiety. So never overestimate your autistic husband's understanding of a situation based on his high intellectual ability and his other strengths, because in most other domains of life, he appears perfectly normal and probably excels. And so you would think, well, if he does so great at work and if he's like the smartest guy over there and he's an engineer or a computer scientist, I mean, he does really well. How come he doesn't get the social stuff? Because ASD is a developmental disorder. Developmentally, his social emotional brain is stunted. So he's going to understand logic, facts, figures. He's going to be task-oriented. He's going to want to work with objects and things, not so much people. He's someone who has not fully figured out how the social world works. He's not figured out how the emotional world works. And he could use a roadmap, quite honestly, and a set of instructions on how to deal with some intricate social things and the emotional intricacies that go along with a romantic relationship or a marriage. That's where you come in, the compassionate coach. He's probably smarter than you on many levels, but when it comes to social emotional stuff, he's more like a 14-year-old. That sounds like an exaggeration. It's not. So you could become a compassionate coach and help him with his blind spots, which they will always be in the social and emotional realm of things.